Welcome back to another episode of Real Results. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas. This is the program where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And I'm super excited to have back to the show my dear friend, Jeff Wickersham. Jeff, how are we doing, brother?
Joe, I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. For the uninitiated, Jeff is the owner of Morning Fire Coaching, and he is also tackling a group that I'm very close to nowadays, and that is dads, and helping dads be the best they can for not only themselves, but their family and their community at large. And that is a topic I want to cover today. So I'm glad that I got your time today, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm pumped to dive into it for sure.
Let's do it. So I know you and I spoke about previously that, dads today really have a pretty tough landscape ahead of them to navigate in order to be the best version of themselves. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about what are some of the things that dads today are facing that can really kind of take them off the path.
Yeah, I would say number one, isolation, right? I think men in general, dads specifically, all of a sudden they start juggling all these balls in the air and they try to do it by themselves.
Yes.
And then they're turning to vices instead of building a brotherhood, building a community, right? And I think that's just kind of in the DNA of the male species, right? We like to be lone wolf. No, I can tough it out. I can handle it. I can carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. And as I've seen in my discussions with dads and through my warrior dad experience, that's not the case, right? We all need help. And it is no measure of a man to say, hey, I can handle it all, because you'll just end up breaking. It's so much better, and it's a sign of strength when you can actually ask for help, and it's not a weakness. So one, I want to change that narrative, right? Of asking for help is a sign of strength, not a weakness, and you don't need to go it alone. And so many times when we become adults, we become dads, we don't have many close brothers in arms that we can lean to and rely on. Yeah, we might have high school or college buddies, but they might not be in the same growth curve that we're on. And
right.
I'll tell you, just frankly, I don't have a lot of those high school, college buddies that are still close to me, because I'm on the attack. I'm enjoying each and every day. I'm pouring into my kids. I'm pouring into my family, and it's just such a different way to live.
100%. I think it's a Native American proverb, right? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And really that environment is everything. And you brought up a good point, Jeff, about like who you're surrounding yourself with is just so critical to the success of where you want to end up ultimately, right? So for yourself, I know you've created quite the program, the Warrior Dad Experience, which sets out to do just that, right? Is create this environment for dads and kind of give them a path to follow.
It does, and one of the greatest things we can bring to every single day is energy, right?
Yes.
That's the number one virtue. It's not we can't manage time really that much better. It's how do we manage our energy, and you need to be around other people that are energetic. And I know in the first time we recorded, I shared a little bit about my story, right?
Yes.
I lost my mom to breast cancer 8.5 years ago. That was my seminal moment, my transformation moment. I didn't know it back then, but that gave me such passion, energy, and it transformed over time. It didn't happen overnight. Where every single day I bring such a high level of energy. I mean, I literally was talking to one of my brother's friends the other day, and he said, do you get this often? And I said, what? He said, I literally, when I'm talking to you, I want to run through a brick wall. And I said, yes, like that's how I bring it every day.
You do. I can confirm that. I can absolutely confirm that. Whenever I get on the phone with you, Jeff, I leave the call going, man, I got to do something to keep up with this guy.
But energy is so powerful. And then leading dads in that daily accountability, consistency, stepping into the best version of ourselves, being that energetic force. And I've seen it in my family. My whole family's followed. And too often now, dads are told that they don't matter. Society is saying, hey, dads are kind of thought second, third, or maybe last in the pecking order. There's nothing farther from the truth. Like, dads are the tip of the spear. They need to be the leaders. They need to be the action takers. They need to be on their toes and on the attack. And when you play that way, all of a sudden your whole family falls in line because you lead by example.
100%. I know we've got this is actually a two-piece segment for those of you watching, so you can tune in for the next episode as well. We're going to dive into Jeff's program, the Warrior Dad Experience, a little more deeply and learn more about that. And Jeff, I want to kind of take that step back in terms of, you sort of touched on it, is this kind of mindset that I know, like, for me to some extent grew up with, I know plenty of dads today grew up with, which is like, yeah, you're a guy, tough it out, rub some dirt on it, be a man, get over it, like, don't talk about your feelings, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's really sort of what's plaguing dads today, and I want to attack that on this show, and I want to try and just crush that limiting belief. And I know you see a lot of it working with the dads that you help. So let's talk about that a little bit in terms of, what you see and how, dads can start taking those steps to just like erase that from their mind if we can.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the dads were raised to rub some dirt on it, tough it out, right?
Yeah.
And I had great parents.
Same.
But I wasn't equipped with the strategies, tactics, and tools that I now have through my journey and that I now give to my boys to have them flourish.
Yes.
And if we're not setting up the future generations, our legacy for more success than we are, I feel like you're failing as a dad.
Yeah.
So that's number one is, I don't care if you had a crappy upbringing, didn't have good parents, you had great parents. 9 times out of 10, you didn't have these strategies and tactics and tools that I've learned through trial and error,
right,
through self-sabotaging, through self-destruction, through deep, dark pain that I went through where I didn't know if I could get out of it. I did, luckily, and now I want to share those with my boys and share those with other dads, as well as this concept of being vulnerable as a man. And I still remember one of the dads who was in class 1. We went on a run/walk, and I'm talking to him and I'm firing it up like you and I do, Joe, in our conversations or any interaction that I have with someone. And he kind of shied away from me and he kind of turned the other way, and I could see he was getting emotional. And I asked him, I said, what's going on? And he said, for the first time in 2 years, I have hope. And he didn't have any before that.
Getting chills.
And it gives me goosebumps now just talking about it. Like it takes only one interaction, it takes only one conversation with someone to change the trajectory of your life. And if you're a dad and you're hopeless, you're depressed, you're isolated, you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted from starting and stopping things and then starting again, you got to find a brotherhood. You got to find somebody that has a system that can get you to that next level.
For sure. No doubt about it. And I know we're going to dive into your program a bit more, later on, but when it comes to maybe even helping dads just get started, because that environment is so important. I mean, what are some maybe like easy, quick, like go-to things you could suggest to dads out there? I mean, just to tip that first domino, that maybe in a way where it's, if I can ask you more specifically, unintimidating, right? Like, how can I just get this thing rolling and get myself in the right environment? Do you have any suggestions there?
One, I love to say simple, easy, and almost laughable.
Yeah.
Right? So many times we want to hit the grand slam home run. We want to do the amazing thing.
Yep.
Well, if we haven't done something in quite some time, or we're looking to build a new habit, a new ritual, a new routine, we got to make it simple, easy, laughable, so we don't have any resistance in the process.
Yes.
And that's kind of counterintuitive, because so often we want to run fast, go so hard. Easy as getting a great night's sleep.
Yes.
Right? I talk to the dads, like the time you recover is when you sleep, physically and mentally.
Yes.
If you're hitting the gym and you're getting 5 hours of sleep, good luck trying to build muscle and recover. It just doesn't happen. And that's so foreign to dads and men in general. Like, you want me to track my sleep? Yes, you need to get at least 7 hours of sleep. If you get less, you're like doubling your risk of cancer.
Yeah.
And
totally.
it's amazing when you think about these things that are so almost automatic.
Right.
But we're not spending enough time looking at the fundamentals, refining them, and making sure they're optimized so we can step into, that hero that each and every one of us has inside.
100%. I mean, it kind of just delves back into like just general self-care, right? Like you're not being less of a man because you're looking out for yourself and getting some sleep, and rather than rub some dirt on it, hustle culture, stay up all night trying to work, you're putting that aside, investing in yourself, getting some good rest, so you can go hard the next day, like full out, and do what you need to do and bring that energy like you keep talking about. I want to touch on a quick point, Jeff, that you're kind of bringing up. It's an analogy that I heard from a mentor of mine, a guy by the name of Peter Sage, who's just an outstanding human being, and he taught this one to me, whereas when you're trying to make a change, right, your mind is like a thermostat. So if you're set to 70 degrees, that's your default, your thermostat, you might start making improvements in how you're doing, right? The temperature's creeping up, but when it gets just outside of that default, you'll self-sabotage and bring yourself back down, right? Just the other way, like if you're kind of falling behind on where you identify with yourself, let's say you're starting to gain weight or you're not living up to your own identity, you're gonna start to make changes to bring yourself back to your normal. But really, it's not about those different things. It's about resetting what that default temperature is at and doing so, as you mentioned, in a way where you're not like shocking your system and the heat and AC aren't turning on so fast, right? Let's do it in a way that's kind of smooth. It's small. It's a small step towards success, like you mentioned. Just tracking your sleep. It's not a big deal. It's not going to let off any alarms in your mind. It's a great way to get started. And like we said, put some self-care time into yourself, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And I would also say simple, easy, almost laughable to start out, but then accountability. Yes. Having somebody that you're accountable to. I mean, that is, the personal development world is $1 billion industry.
Yep.
And I see dads all the time say, I've read the books, I've gone to the seminars, I can't take action.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I come in from an accountability, consistency space. And we need to be warriors, not librarians. We have the knowledge, right? We live in the greatest time ever. We need to be warriors and take action and take daily action and have somebody that actually holds us accountable to do it, because that's where if we look back in our earlier years, that's when we were at our best, right? When we had a coach or we had a teacher, we had a parent, somebody has said, hey, you got to get your stuff done and you got to do it today. Okay. That instilled some discipline, that instilled some consistency. We had the accountability, and then we ended up doing things that we didn't think were possible and achieving some success in that spiraling upward from a growth perspective.
100%. So I want to keep riffing on this because it's so important, Jeff. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, I want to jump more into the concept of discipline when it comes to being a dad.
We both got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Have you heard? Join me, Heather Darling, weekly for a different spin on politics, business, law, and other key issues you will not want to miss right here on RVN TV.
You see, son, with a little elbow grease, you can do just about anything.
Thanks, Dad.
That's right, Robert. And it's never too early to learn you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer.
That's right, Jamie. But it's not just about savings. It's about the friends we make along the way.
You said it, Flo. And don't forget to floss before you brush. Your gums will thank you.
That's right, Dr. Gary.
Jamie?
Sorry, I had another thought, so I got back in line.
What was it?
I can't remember.
My dream day with Offset starts like...
Cardi, baby, get in.
I surprised you with a place all to ourselves.
Thank you, baby.
You look gorgeous tonight, baby.
We share our favorite McDonald's order.
And we start with a cheers. Let's eat. The Cardi B.
An Offset meal.
Welcome back to Real Results, and again with me today I've got Coach Jeff Wickersham. Jeff, we were just getting knee-deep in a conversation about being a dad, some vices and things that dads jump run into, but how the importance of environment and accountability are to get that ball moving. Now, I know there's a lot out there that dads can fall prey to in terms of these vices, as you call them, or kryptonites, I know as you like to call them, that can really kind of take them off the path. What I want to do now is identify what more of those things are and really kind of delve into them, and then we can talk about how to dig our way out. So what else do you see, aside from that isolation factor, that can really sort of derail dads when it comes to being the best version of themselves and for their family.
Yeah, vices, I love to call them kryptonites, right? Kryptonites, I feel like they're just kind of chipping away at us, right? Kryptonite dust, it doesn't hurt us one day, but eventually it'll compound over time and really have a negative impact. And it's the big ones, right? Alcohol is a huge one. Close to 18 months not touching it.
Nice.
I don't think I'll ever go back because it was just such a limitation on how fast I wanted to go in life. And, you know, so often we are led and we're fed by movies and society like, hey, the day ends and I need a drink to unwind. Well, there are so many downstream negative impacts from a physical health perspective. I would say it's even greater on a mental health perspective. It makes you more anxious, more depressed, all these factors. So alcohol is one of the vices that, you know, for me personally, I abused it on the weekends in my 20s and 30s. Got to a point in my life where I said, is this truly serving me?
Right.
And then also said, well, I've got 11 and 12-year-old sons. Do I want to be the dad that is sitting there slamming a six-pack on Friday night and Saturday night, and they're totally aware of what I'm doing? Or do I want to set an example? And I've been very transparent with them. I said, if I had the choice to go back, I would have never touched alcohol.
Yeah.
I said, a lot of the dark times, a lot of the difficult things, a lot of the stupid things I did were related to that. So alcohol would be, you know, number one.
Can we, Jeff, real quick, can we touch on that? Like can you just talk about how you feel not consuming alcohol for that long? I feel like it's so common, like you said, to come home and, you know, crack open a beer. It's like so stereotypical, but you haven't touched the stuff for over a year and a half. Like, how much better do you feel physically and mentally? Like, I want people to know, like, what the possibility is like. Can you talk about that?
I have never been in better shape at 48 years young than I am right now, right? And our cells regenerate every 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
Well, my cells in my body went 28 years with alcohol infused in them.
Wow.
And just the physicality, I can do things now that I couldn't do in my 20s.
Unbelievable. That's amazing.
The mental clarity, I don't ever wake up and not have my A game related to self-sabotage. I might not have my A game because maybe I didn't sleep that well.
Sure.
But I have a crispness, a clearness, a focus.
Yes.
And then that allows me to be on my toes every single day. And I have a dad in class 2 right now. He took 6 weeks off, went to Belize with his dad's 70th birthday, his brothers and sisters. 6 days it was a bender. He was crippled for a week and a half, and he said, I can't believe the impact that this has on, like, he just couldn't get out of his own way. And I said, well, alcohol stays with you for 7 to 10 days from a mental perspective, and he just never knew it. And he's like, man, he saw the other side. As I tell him, I said, you unplugged from the matrix, because 90% of people consume alcohol, and if it doesn't bother you, hey, have at it.
Sure.
I know it was holding me back. He unplugged from the matrix, and then he went back in, and he was like, wow, this is just eye-opening. So peak physical and mental state, I'm able to run, lift more, do more pull-ups, mentally be able to be there and be in control of my mindset and my mental, you know, faculties so much more versus when I had it in my system. I was quick. I was irritable at times. I would maybe jump down my wife's throat if something happened. I mean, when I chose to give it up, my wife said, hey, I like you better when you don't drink. I said, all right, there's another point to score.
If that isn't motivating, yeah, for sure. That's amazing. No doubt. Well, I mean, I think it's important, like, to share that, right? Like, we all kind of know what some of the bad effects are, right? We've all been there, wake up the next day, oh my gosh, shouldn't have had that much to drink. But not having it for that long and the difference that you feel is amazing. I know for myself, I'm not a big drinker. I might have maybe, you know, a glass of wine once a week, if that. So to me, it doesn't really affect me so much, and it's not something I really crave. But I know for you, like you said with your story, like, being able to come off of that for so long and see the positive effects. I mean, I hope that there's dads watching that hear this and say, you know what, I resonate with what Jeff's saying. I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try not drinking for a little while and just see how much better I can feel. So I'm glad we got to touch on that. So that was alcohol's number 1. What would you say is number 2 in terms of the kryptonites like we talked about?
Number 2 is porn. It's everywhere. It's easy to get, and it is just a slippery slope to wiring in a dopamine hit with something that's very kind of shameful or something you're not proud of, and it just takes you down this dark path. And I experienced that, right? There are times in my marriage where it was encouraged, right? Where we were going through difficult times, right? So I've had that discussion with my oldest son of be very aware of this. And I heard on a podcast something recently like that men now suffer from porn ED, where they can't perform because they're watching this so manufactured scene that the experience with their girlfriend or the wife is just so not near that dope that they can't perform. So it's just a slippery slope again. It's everywhere. It's constantly fed to you, and it's difficult to get away from.
Yeah.
But it enriches your relationship with your wife, and it's amazingly powerful when you can do that. So that's definitely number 2 in the hierarchy.
Do you mind, Jeff, if we could, if you're cool with it, I know like that's got to be an extremely like tough conversation to have with your son. I know for my son's not even a year old yet, and I'm sure someday I'll have to have that conversation with him about, hey, here's the reality of the situation, right? It is everywhere. That doesn't mean that's something you should be pursuing, right? I mean, what's some advice you could give the dads to maybe like broach that subject with their sons and hopefully get them on the right track and understanding just the gravity of, what that slippery slope is like and how to avoid it?
Strategy number 1, and I've used this in my parenting in the last 7 to 10 years with my boys, is sharing my experience first and the impact that it's had on me.
Yeah.
Right? I think if we say, hey, porn is bad, you shouldn't watch it, you shouldn't drink alcohol, it doesn't resonate with them. We have to be vulnerable. We have to share that we're imperfect, which is kind of refreshing, I think, for our kids to see, because they feel that we're perfect, even though we're far from it. But sharing some of those dark times, sharing the impact or the negative impact it's had on me, I think that creates a foundation to be able to have a conversation. And I'm a huge science guy and numbers and just explaining why.
Yes.
And it's been very impactful, and my boys have really taken to it. I will say, it's not only on the vice side, it's like we talked about sleep.
Yep.
My oldest was going down a slippery slope, Snapchat and TikTok, and girls came into the equation where I was fighting with him to get to bed.
Yeah.
Well, I said, you want to be a Division I athlete, you got to get good sleep. Some days now he beats me upstairs to bed at 9 o'clock, right? And I'm like, wow, what a 180. So, being very vulnerable, being transparent, sharing your stories allows you to connect and then be able to kind of guide them in their journey.
For sure. No, I love that. And I think what's really cool and might be a little more subtle to the folks watching is you're touching on sort of the 2 ways to connect, right? Is the emotional side of things through your story, right? And obviously making it very real. It's their own father, right? Kind of be able to feel that. But also, and I know we do this when we talk about all kinds of things, if it's working out or nutrition, whatever, is touching on the science and the statistics and sort of the left brain analytical side of things, and marrying those two makes a very strong argument, in either direction for whatever it is you're talking about. So I love that you blend those 2 things and you're able to do it in a way that, you can connect well with your son and get that across. Hopefully dads watching can utilize that. I know we're kind of coming up on time here, Jeff, but maybe there's maybe one more kryptonite you have in your back pocket we could throw out there and talk through real quick to share with dads that are out there.
Social media, right? You can just get on it, you can scroll, you can be down that dark hole and never get out of it. I mean, you're fighting the most sophisticated artificial intelligence supercomputers in the world.
No doubt.
And it just crushes your time.
Yes.
And if you're spending a half an hour each day for the entire year, you could save 180 hours, 4.5 weeks of time.
Wow.
Like we're numbers guys, right? 30 minutes a day is 180 hours, 4.5 weeks you could get of time back if you weren't on scrolling through social over and over again. So I've put up some bright white lines where I've deleted some apps off of my phone. I only have a couple left, and I have limits on those apps. So I actually have to say, yes, I want to look at it more, put a little resistance into the equation, but
Yep.
social media is definitely another kryptonite.
Yeah, I think that's a great one too. And what's really eye-opening, so I did this a little while ago, and I don't know what it is for Android phones, but I have an iPhone. So for iPhone, if you go into your settings and go to the battery part of the settings, you can scroll down and see how much time you've spent on your apps in the last like 10 days or so. And it is eye-opening to the point where, I mean, this is maybe a year ago when I initially did it, or maybe more. I looked at it, I had spent so much time between Facebook and Instagram, I immediately went out and deleted those 2 apps just off my phone, period.
Yeah.
And so I go through periods. Well, it's like a social media diet. I just cut it out. I fast, from social media for anywhere from a couple days to a week or 2 weeks. I just delete it. I don't check it on my desktop, nothing. And I can't tell you like how much time I get back, how much like clearer I am because I'm not just stuck in my phone all the time. I mean, it is, I think, critical for people to just take a break, even if it's for a day or two, and see how you feel, versus just being stuck, like you said, in this supreme algorithm, like machines and people who are a lot smarter than you and I are making this thing to keep you glued to your phone and just consuming and consuming. So would definitely recommend that folks give that a shot. So I know, Jeff, we're coming up on time here. We got to wrap things up. I know we got another segment coming up. We're going to talk about your Warrior Dad Experience program, which I think is amazing. So hopefully folks tune into that. But where can folks find you, Jeff? They want to learn more, connect, and check you out.
I'm out on all socials, but if you are a dad who wants to reach that next level, wants to be a part of a brotherhood, wants to be on their toes attacking each day, you can go out to warriordad.com. Got a ton of content out there, some testimonials, some details about the program. You can grab a time to speak with me.
Fantastic. Awesome. And as always, you can check out resultswithjoe.com. We're going to have Jeff's stuff featured on there soon as well, so you can check it out through my channel also. So thank you again for tuning in to Real Results, and we'll catch you in the next episode.